Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Speak Smart podcast. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into this really popular YouTube video about learning English. It's especially helpful for beginners. It's hosted by Sophia, and she just has this energy that makes you feel like you can do anything. We're going to break down her whole approach and pull out the best tips and tricks so you can start speaking English confidently.
You know, one of the coolest things about her approach is that she really focuses on why you would want to learn English. She doesn't assume everyone's on the same page. She gives a compelling case for why English is so important today.
Yeah. She talks about how it opens up all these opportunities like global careers, international travel, even just connecting with people from different cultures online. It's almost like she's saying, hey, learning English isn't about just grammar rules. It's about expanding your horizons and experiencing the world in a totally new way.
Exactly. And she really hits home on how much the internet is dominated by English. It's such a huge part of our lives these days. So even if you're not planning on moving abroad or working for some international company, being able to understand and communicate in English online opens up so much information and connection.
Okay, so we're convinced English is important.
Yeah.
But how do we start? Sophia has this analogy that she uses. She compares it to building a house to explain her approach.
Yeah. It's a perfect analogy because it highlights the importance of a strong foundation. She breaks down learning English into 3 building blocks: vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation.
That makes so much sense. You can't build a house without bricks and mortar and a blueprint. So let's start with vocabulary. Sophia really likes using vocabulary cards. I know lots of people use them, but she has some interesting ideas about them.
She focuses on how important it is to use the words in context. It's not just about memorizing words, it's more about understanding how they work in sentences and how their meanings change depending on the situation. For example, the word cool can be about temperature or style or even a general feeling. It all depends on the context.
That's such a good point. I remember having trouble memorizing the word exquisite. I couldn't remember it until I started using it in conversations. It finally clicked when I was describing a friend's exquisite taste in fashion. And suddenly it wasn't just some word on a flashcard, it had meaning.
Exactly. Sophia also has great advice about grammar, which can be a bit intimidating for new learners. She recommends starting with the basics like subject-verb agreement and then going to more difficult things as you learn more.
She's so enthusiastic about it. She makes grammar sound fun. She even tells a story about a common grammar mistake she used to make. It just makes her so relatable. It's like she's saying, hey, we all make mistakes. It's all part of the process.
So important. It helps you relax and not worry about being perfect. And it lets you just experiment and learn from your mistakes. And speaking of learning from others, Sophia has some great advice about pronunciation. She says it's super important to listen to and imitate native speakers. It's really helpful for developing a natural accent.
It's true. And there are so many online resources now, like podcasts and YouTube videos and even language learning apps that help you with pronunciation. You can basically talk with a virtual tutor right on your phone.
What I think is interesting is that Sophia says you should find a pronunciation style that's comfortable for you. She knows there are so many different ways that English is spoken around the world. And the goal isn't to sound like a textbook. It's to communicate clearly and confidently.
So it's like finding your own voice in English. I love that. It takes the pressure off trying to sound perfect. And you can just be yourself.
Yeah. And that brings us to the fun part of learning English. Sophia has all these ideas about how to practice and have fun at the same time.
I want to hear it all. Tell me the fun tips.
She's all about finding natural and enjoyable ways to bring English into your daily life, like reading, watching movies and TV shows, playing games, and listening to music. All in English, of course.
I can already see how this would be way more fun than just sitting with a textbook. You're immersing yourself in the language, and it becomes a part of your life.
Right. And it makes learning so much more enjoyable. Who wouldn't want to learn English by watching their favorite shows or listening to their favorite bands or playing games?
I know I would. It's like sneaking in language practice while doing things you love. So let's talk about each of these and how Sophia says we can use them to learn.
Okay. Let's start with reading. Sophia thinks reading can really help you learn new words, and it can help you improve your grammar and get a sense of different writing styles.
I can see how that would work. But sometimes it's hard to stay motivated when you're reading boring things. Does Sophia have any advice for that?
She recommends reading things that you're actually interested in. It could be about sports, fashion, technology, anything that you like. When you find reading material that you enjoy, it's so much more fun.
It's like you're learning without even realizing it. What about movies and TV shows? I've heard those can be really helpful for learning English.
Definitely. Sophia says to start with shows that have clear dialogue and simple stories. You can also turn on the English subtitles if you need them. The main thing is to relax, enjoy the show, and let yourself absorb the language.
Look, it's just fun.
Yeah.
I remember learning so much English from watching sitcoms and reality shows. It's amazing how much you pick up just from listening.
It's a great way to get a feel for how English is spoken. And you know what else Sophia recommends? Games.
Games. Tell me more.
She thinks word games like Scrabble or Boggle can help you learn new words and practice spelling. And games that make you communicate like charades or taboo can help you think quickly and speak more fluently.
I love it. It's like having fun with friends and family and learning English at the same time.
Yeah.
And speaking of fun, Sophia really loves music.
Music is a universal language, and it can really help you learn English. Sophia suggests listening to English songs, paying attention to the words, and even trying to sing along.
Music was always a big part of how I learned languages. I still remember so many English phrases from my favorite bands growing up. It's amazing how music helps you remember things.
It's not just memorizing words. You're also learning the rhythm and the feeling of the language. And the best part is you don't even realize you're learning because you're enjoying the music.
So we've covered a lot today.
Yeah.
We talked about Sophia's approach to the basics of English, vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. And we talked about some fun ways to practice. But learning a language isn't always easy. There are going to be times when you feel frustrated.
That's true. And that's what we'll be talking about next. Sophia has some great advice on overcoming those challenges and staying motivated.
Stay tuned, because this is where it gets really interesting.
Welcome back. We were just talking about some fun ways to practice English, but it's not always easy.
Yeah, there are days when you just don't feel motivated, or you're not seeing much progress, or you might say something wrong and feel embarrassed. But Sophia has some really good strategies for dealing with those challenges.
One thing that really stuck with me is her advice about setting achievable goals. It's about taking that big goal of learning English and breaking it down into smaller steps.
That's so true. It's easy to feel overwhelmed when you think about how much there is to learn. But if you break it down into smaller goals, like maybe this week I'll learn the present perfect tense, or I'll watch a show without subtitles, it feels so much more manageable.
Right. And she also says it's important to celebrate those small wins. Every step forward, even a small one, is a reason to be proud of yourself.
I love that. Celebrating those wins can really help you stay motivated and remind you that you're making progress. But what about the fear of speaking? I think a lot of people are afraid of making mistakes or sounding silly when they speak English.
Absolutely. That fear is totally normal. And Sophia talks about it directly. She says it's important to find supportive environments to practice speaking, like language exchange partners or conversation groups, places where you can feel safe to experiment, make mistakes, and get comfortable.
I think that's key. Finding people who are patient and encouraging and won't judge you for making mistakes, because everyone makes mistakes when they're learning.
Exactly. She even tells a story about a time when she messed up a sentence in English and everyone just laughed with her. It shows that most people understand and appreciate the effort you're making, even if you're not perfect.
I needed to hear that. It's easy to worry too much about what other people think, but the important thing is to communicate, not to be perfect. So find people who will support you and make learning fun.
And speaking of finding time, Sophia also talks about how hard it can be to fit English practice into a busy schedule. We all struggle with that, right?
Oh yeah, life gets in the way and it feels like there's never enough time. But Sophia has some really good tips.
She talks about the power of small, consistent efforts. You don't need to find hours and hours to study, just small pockets of time throughout the day.
I like that. It's about making English a part of your life, not just something you study. So what kind of things does she recommend?
She says you can listen to podcasts while you commute, or read a few pages of an English book before bed, or watch a short English video during your lunch break.
Those are great ideas. I started listening to English podcasts while I walk my dog. It's amazing how much you can learn without even feeling like you're studying.
Exactly. It's about finding those little moments throughout your day where you can naturally use English. And you know what's interesting? Sophia connects this idea of finding time to the importance of building confidence.
Oh, that makes sense. The more you practice, the more comfortable you become, and the more confident you feel.
Precisely. And she has some great strategies for building confidence.
Tell me I need all the confidence I can get.
One of her biggest messages is to focus on your progress, not your mistakes. Don't dwell on what you haven't learned yet. Celebrate how far you've come.
That's such a good reminder. It's so easy to focus on the negative and compare yourself to others. But focusing on your own progress can really make a difference.
And it's not just about what you tell yourself. Sophia also says it's important to surround yourself with people who believe in you.
I think that's really important. Having someone who supports you and celebrates your successes can make a big difference.
Exactly. And when it comes to building confidence, nothing beats practice. Sophia encourages you to speak English as much as you can, even if it's just ordering coffee or talking to a coworker.
I can see how that would help you build confidence. Like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Exactly. And speaking of pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, Sophia has this interesting tip about visualization.
Visualization. I've heard of that for sports, but I've never thought about using it for language learning. How does that work?
Well, Sophia suggests taking a few minutes each day to imagine yourself speaking English fluently and confidently. Picture yourself having conversations, expressing your ideas, and feeling comfortable using the language.
I love that. It's like a mental rehearsal for real life conversations. And I can see how that would help reduce anxiety and make you feel more confident.
Exactly. It's about training your mind to believe that you can do it.
So we've talked about setting goals, celebrating progress, finding support, practicing and using visualization. Is there anything else Sophia recommends for building confidence?
Yes. One of the most important things she talks about is embracing your mistakes as opportunities to learn.
That's so true. It's easy to get discouraged when you make mistakes, but it's important to see them as part of the learning process. How does Sophia talk about that?
She says to think of mistakes as valuable feedback, not as failures. Every mistake is a chance to learn something new. You're figuring out what you need to work on and getting closer to mastering the language.
It's like those mistakes are actually helping you learn, and it takes the pressure off trying to be perfect all the time.
Exactly. Sophia even suggests keeping a mistake journal. Write down the mistakes you make and what you learn from them.
I like that idea. It turns mistakes into something positive. And it can be motivating to look back and see how much you've learned.
And you know what else Sophia talks about? Finding your own way of learning.
That's so important. We all learn in different ways. What works for one person might not work for another. How does Sophia suggest we figure out what works best for us?
She says to try different methods and see what you enjoy and what helps you learn. Maybe you like flashcards and pictures, or maybe you prefer listening to podcasts and music. The important thing is to find what works for you and make learning fun.
I think that's a great message. It's about taking control of your learning and finding what you enjoy. And it goes back to that idea of having fun. If you're enjoying the process, you're more likely to keep going.
Exactly. Sophia's message is all about believing in yourself, embracing the challenges, and finding joy in learning English.
It's so inspiring. It makes me want to go listen to a podcast right now.
Well, hold on to that feeling. Because in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be talking more about building confidence and becoming a more fluent English speaker.
I can't wait. Welcome back to the Speak Smart podcast. We've been talking about Sophia's advice on learning English. We've covered building a strong foundation, overcoming challenges, and finding what works best for you. Now let's talk about one of the most important parts, building confidence.
Sophia believes confidence is key to language learning. When you believe in yourself, you're more likely to speak up and enjoy the process.
I totally agree. When you're confident, you're more willing to take risks. So how can we build that confidence?
One thing Sophia says is to focus on your progress, not your mistakes. Instead of thinking about what you haven't learned yet, celebrate how far you've come.
It's so easy to get caught up in negative thoughts, but focusing on the positive can really change your mindset.
Right. And it's not just about what you tell yourself. It's also about being around people who support you and encourage you.
Having a cheerleader in your corner can make a huge difference, especially when you're feeling discouraged.
Exactly. And Sophia reminds us that practice is essential for building confidence. The more you use English, the more comfortable you'll become. She encourages us to speak up whenever we can, even if it's a little scary at first.
I know that feeling. I used to be so nervous about speaking English in public. I was afraid of making mistakes. But Sophia says those moments are opportunities to grow.
That's right. She wants us to embrace the challenges and remember that every mistake is a chance to learn.
So instead of being afraid of making mistakes, we should focus on communicating and connecting with others.
And Sophia has another interesting tip about visualization.
Visualization for language learning. I've never thought about that. How does it work?
Sophia suggests taking a few minutes every day to imagine yourself speaking English confidently. Picture yourself having conversations, expressing your ideas, and feeling at ease with the language.
I like that it's like a mental practice for real conversations.
Exactly. You're training your mind to believe that you can do it.
So we've talked about focusing on progress, finding support, practicing, embracing mistakes, and using visualization. Anything else?
Sophia also emphasizes the importance of finding your own learning style. We all learn in different ways, and what works for one person might not work for another. Try different methods and see what you enjoy.
That makes sense. We need to create a learning experience that's personalized and engaging.
And in the end, Sophia's message is all about empowerment. She wants you to believe in yourself, enjoy the process, and find joy in learning English.
It's been so insightful to explore Sophia's ideas with you. We've talked about building a foundation, overcoming challenges, and now building confidence.
It's been a pleasure. What resonated with you the most?
I think what I'll remember is Sophia's focus on finding joy in the process. Learning English doesn't have to be boring. It can be an exciting adventure.
I agree. It's about enjoying the journey. And remember, the end of one journey is just the beginning of another. What new adventures will English unlock for you?
Thank you for listening to the Speak Smart podcast. We hope you feel inspired to continue your English learning journey. Happy learning.